Boa tarde e sejam bem-vindos para mais uma sessão, neste caso da responsabilidade da Cipher e do Francisco Quintero, que durante meia hora nos vai aqui apresentar uma sessão sobre um breve briefing sobre a Cybervigilance. Francisco, muitas gracias. Podem pensar.
Obrigado, Felipe. Hi to everyone, and welcome to this session where we will talk about cybervigilance. My name is Francisco Quintero, and I am Cybervigilance Manager at Cipher, and I've been involved in this position and business for more than 4 years. We set cybervigilance service within the cyber intelligence frame. So first of all, let's talk about cyber intelligence. There is no unofficial crystallized and worldwide accepted agreement about what cyber intelligence is or which security domains or scope it covers. INCA, RCA, and other entities have their own definition for cyber intelligence. The one that I like the most and that we will take as a clear and open sample is the one from the Software Engineering Institute by Carnegie Mellon in the USA. They talk about, when talking about cyber intelligence, they talk about acquiring, processing, analyzing, and disseminating information that identifies, tracks, and predicts threats, risks, and predict threats, risk, and the opportunities inside the cyber domain to offer courses of action that enhance the decision making. This definition is quite wide open and invites to a free interpretation. It's cyber intelligence a product or is it a process? In Cipher's conception, of course, is just both of them, as we will discuss later in cyber intelligence cycle, since it affects to methodology as well as to the delivery. By the way, is cyber intelligence for inside or from cyberspace? After all, intelligence types just differs from others in the environment they gather information from. At the same time, cyberspace also is the mean through which a cyber attack takes place, despite of the fact the final goal is a digital system. That's when we call cyber-dependent crime, or a well-known fraud cause taking place into the physical world. That's what we call cyber-enabled crime. In this case, will be supported by cyberspace through, for instance, CEO fraud mail. Additionally, we can find other cases where there is not a crime as a fact at the end of the cycle, but we still a threat to our company. Imagine, for instance, you are head HR and there's a need for renegotiate the labor deal. There might be protests, strikes, sabotage, boycotts, risks for VIP profiles, risks for business continuity, for instance. They all can be detected in digital sources such social networks or forums, and we can take decision that helps to mitigate the risk after an assessment. Here, in the cyber-dependent threat and crime is where Cybervigilance team moved forward as part of the cyber intelligence service. Are we just analyzing digital risk on digital systems, or shall we also, by the way, use cyberspace to detect and analyze physical world threats? Here, we will expose how we understand cyber intelligence and cyber vigilance in a hybrid meaning in line with our current world, with physics and logic reality and its different means. How do we understand the cyber vigilance service must be? Cyber intelligence can be understood nowadays without the convergence of physical and cyber world. Threats goes from one to the other, and intelligence analysis must be in the intersection, and we will focus in that fact. Regarding results, when you expect results from a service like cybervigilance, it's easier to understand threats criticality level if you see a color on the results of a report or a level number. We define for each client in a common agreement with them a classified risk table to define and identify what we will consider a risk, how critical it is, which will be considered a severe threat, and we will categorize the results to drive the way always to decision making. Another point to understand cybervigilance service, our intelligence service model is based on ad hoc requested needs of analysis and delivery, always over automation for monitoring processes on the network. We don't have the same portfolio for every service, but we adapt our portfolio to every need that the client can present to us. We use automation processes and a set of different OSINT tools to gather and filter the information. By the way, on this automation with tools, we will apply an additional layer to let the analyst knowledge play on that process. As threats change, the service does in the same way and evolve. We will keep our ears open to the changes and the client's feedback as well. A kind of deliverable could be useful now, but not for the next year. Just only think what happened last year regarding the COVID pandemic crisis. With all the people in the world confined, there will be no protest and there will be no threats to deal with. Like mobility needs in the production line in a factory could be a change of this service, or a new fraud opportunities via phishing, even it was not on the first scope when we started to talk with our clients about their needs. Scope and efforts must be respected in a contract, but it doesn't mean that we can change deliverables, periodicity, the matrix of interest and risks that we agreed and shared with our client at the beginning of the service. Tracking keywords, include new actors, or follow-up monitoring, because the service must evolve and adapt to new scenarios as well as the threats do. Let's go deeper in how we build our professional cybervigilance service team. Not every company can afford on its own a cyber intelligence team. And that's why there is a gap to our cybervigilance service provider. The nature of the detected threat through the intelligence process may differ. May we face a critical vulnerability and then we have to implement patching actions. May we face a ransomware campaign and then we need to know fast IOCs to block the attack in our platform. Or may we face a research to advise if we should go into an investment. May we face a SOCMIC analysis to predict a social reputation threat or crisis, so we can analyze it and deliver to the client an alert where we tell that the protest is close to happen to their facilities or is going to take place, so they can take decisions to mitigate any related risk. We will need to balance skills and responsibilities with analytical expertise. Cyber intelligence teams should strike the right balance of having technical staff working alongside those who possess strength, intelligence, and geopolitical analysis and experience who will work in cybervigilance. Following up Nist framework recommendations, Carnegie Mellon Cyber Intelligence Tradecraft report on 2019 talks about the roles and the professional teams we should need to fit in the Nist framework, outstanding the required balance of technical skills with analytical expertise in your staff. Regarding cyber intelligence team, we will need multidisciplinary analyst profiles, such engineers for digital threat analysis, involving, for instance, vulnerabilities, leaks, threat actors analysis, indicator of compromise detection, etc. And on the other hand, a strategic analyst to provide holistic intelligence assessment, where we will find threats at protest, physical risks for our company assets, social alarms risks through the source in the cyber domain. Human value is as relevant for analysis as the tools and technology investment is for catering. If we fix RISE, into the intelligence cycle. Well, here we have our intelligence cycle. Now we are ready to go into the intelligence cycle that is really the heart of a cyber-vigilance service. Within the Nist framework, where every cybersecurity activity or service must rely on, there we apply the classical intelligence cycle to deploy a cyber-vigilance service. Cyber intelligence cycle defines the process of developing raw information into finished intelligence for policymakers through analysis to use it in decision making and take actions. There are 5 steps, as you can see on the screen, which constitute the intelligence cycle. We have a first step to go through: planning and direction. What are we doing here? Where you need to meet, this is where you meet to the final recipient of the delivery to collect and define the threats that you will have to follow in the service that we are defining. How the service will be organized, the volume of information that we will have to manage, how will we avoid false positives, how will we classify the information, which tools will we need to configure, and how the delivery will be. In this second step, the collection, what we do is the act of, once we have configured and designed how the service will be, this is the act of monitoring for threats. Data will come through different open sources. Some of them will be tools. Some of them even will be manual monitoring. And we will filter it and classify so as to we can convert this data in useful information. Most of the work coming from here will be processed by automation in different tools, but the analyst will participate selecting, filtering, and establishing categories and correcting information coming from the tools, so they can be useful information. And after that comes the analysis. The monitoring brings us a finding. We analyze the threat that we have detected, the actors, the object of the threat, and deliver a report with an assessment and recommendations, even if it applies. The deliverable can be a deep perspective and analysis report, as well as it can be a regular and periodic report, as well as it can be an alert notification. It can be even a phone call if we need to communicate fast a threat that is going to happen soon and affect to the recipient and the people who has to receive the alert. What is left to do? To take action to mitigate the risk. For instance, let's think about the identified threat is a phishing domain registration. The action to mitigate the risk would be, for instance, to issue a request to take down the domain. Other example, for instance, is if the threat is a labor protest close to our facilities or against our brand, we can increase, to take action, we can increase the number of physical security guards or send specialized legal advisors to work on the negotiation and then mitigate the risk. The intelligence cycle, it's useful for every different delivery that we can do, always taking in mind that we have to anticipate a threat, so the recipient of the information has to take a decision. But what difference data and information makes? We call information to data after being collected in catering or monitoring processes built at the beginning of the cyber intelligence cycle. Information is data with meaning, out of false positives, and useful for an analyst when reporting threats. We call passive monitoring when collection comes from configured tools in an automation process. We check results on dashboards and see if an alert must be submitted, if we need to do any deep investigation, due diligence, or risk analysis. We will have to manually look for information in different sources out of the planified monitoring scope. That's what we call active monitoring. Like institutional reports and stats to build a prospective report, for instance, that's what we call active catering. Once we have filtered, classified, and verified the information, then the analyst works in the assessment regarding actors, the impact that the fact is going to happen. The reliability on the sources is not the same that we take information coming from a tweet that coming from a digital press platform, like El País or any other press. So the message receiver can take a course of actions. After all, OSINT is not just collecting information, but the construction of analysis from the collected, filtered, and processed data with the aim, after all, of giving an answer that serves for the decision making. Now, how can we build this service if we have to make a draw? As every process, we have an input and an output, and inside them we have an internal procedures to follow. The information is coming from OSINT tools, cyber threat intelligence tools, or even manual monitoring. If it comes from OSINT tools, we are talking more close to Cybervigilance. If we are using cyber threat intelligence tools, we are talking more cyber intelligence, and we are using for this analysis of information coming out from these tools will be technical profiles, engineers, etc. If information is coming from OSINT tools, it is more useful to do an investigation. It is more close to physical risk, to reputation, and threats that can take place in the real world, not in the cyber domain. But after all, the process is the same. It only differs in the source where the information is coming from. After that, we are taking the information, processing through the tools, or maybe an operator could take this information and convert it into an alert, or request assistance from an analyst, an expert analyst, a level 2 or level 3, that is the one who makes different and deeper reports with more perspective and analysis. Well, when we talk about a cyber intelligence service, depending on the profile that we are going to implement, who is going to work in the service, we can organize different areas. When we talk about cybervigilance, the analyst is more close to detections in cyberspace of threats that can be materialized into a physical space. Then we do intelligence analysis, country risk analysis, or even holistic risk analysis. And when we talk about digital fraud and cybercrime, then we need even some profiles more technical, like engineers, for instance, that understand how to treat an impersonation with a domain, occupation, or take any sort of action, like for instance, investigate the fraud email to try to take indicator of compromises and take information to identify the attacker. On the other hand, and purely into the cyber threat intelligence field, these technical profiles will be working on vulnerabilities, indicators of compromise, cyber intelligence feeds, cyber threat detection, correlation analysis, etc. If we had to talk about which object is are we protecting, we can talk about we need to protect people, or we need to protect physical infrastructure or any assets. We can protect the brand, we can protect the data and the information, the digital assets, even the processes and business continuity and heritage. You can design a different service for every interest that you wish to protect. And if we are talking about assets that are more into the physical world, like people, like physical infrastructure, even the brand sometimes that is a mixture between digital assets and physical assets. We use a strategical profile. If we are more talking about protection on data, on information, protecting against leaks, vulnerabilities, or fraud, we are talking with technical profiles. In the same way, we can explain this regarding if we are going to give a continuity service or work on one-shot service reports by request from the client. This is a service example so you can understand how can a service works. This doesn't work the same ways always. This is a real case of a client of us, and it explains how the evolution of the service went. After the monitoring, we receive alerts. We have a category, a description, the source where the alert comes from, the liability, information assessment, information about the impact. Well, if you deliver this to the client and there are some alerts coming in the same days, coming about the same topic, maybe we need to do a deeper analysis. Then we work in a basic, for instance, analysis report. We call it information note. For instance, imagine that we, for instance, receive information about a new activist group that can cause problems to our company. And then we need to know who are behind, to work on the background, which has caused the beginning of this group of people that can suppose and something bad for us. Then we can do a report. The report will bring us different profiles. We can do then profiles research, digital footprints, investigations, to try to find information about those attackers that can suppose a threat. Even we can do a threat management. Imagine that we detected, for instance, an account in a social network that is using and impersonating our brand. We can do the treating on, and we can manage this threat, and we can try to release and take the account to our client. Well, I really would like to show you in these last minutes how how we work in the real world, and I have prepared some information on how we work, and I have been careful about not showing information about our clients. This is a real example of a follow-up that we do, but we will not find any brand in here because this is a sector follow-up. This is about radical activism follow-up, and this is the tool that we work with. An analyst, when this monitoring and taking the information, will see this and will see results, and will put a tag on every result, so it's a false positive or not, and it will appear or it will disappear in the next follow-up that the next analyst take this if he tags the result. In the tool, we can see different results that comes from open source, from public places. It could be social networks, it could be digital press, it could be forums. And what is behind these results? How a follow-up is built? This is, for instance, a follow-up regarding the banking sector, and this is a part of the query that we are using that brings us the results. As you can see, there are Boolean operators, and there is another advanced operators. In here, we mix the terms of risks and the terms of runs that we are following up. We can even take information, especially from different sites, and take all the results. This is a very complex query. And finally, how we see this. Even we can transform this into a different service for a client. This is, we can convert this query in a dashboard like this, where we see information regarding the mentions in social networks, in news media, and we can see the information divided and the trends that is taking place regarding a topic that we define in the tool. We can see even the peaks and click on it and see, for instance, why the peak is coming from and which is the topic that we are talking about and why we have a peak in here, and understand and see if there is a threat or not. These sorts of dashboards help us to understand the most influential sites and even the most influential authors in social media. This has to do with the engagement, and it's a calculation done by the tool. We also have a sentiment indicator in every result, and I must admit that this is automated in the tool, the sentiment calculation, but this is one of the tools more loyal to the reality when we are talking about the sentiment, even if it's automatic. It has a very good artificial intelligence working behind. Then we see the topics that are talking about. Even we can see a conversation cluster in the gap of time that we are studying in this dashboard, and we can see the topics and how they are interrelated among each other. And we also can do, because we can create, we can automate the assignation of tags to different results and associate them to different brands. And that helps us to do an analysis on competitive intelligence, for instance. And this is helpful for all the banking sector. This is an example of a dashboard that we can build and offer to the client. We also can see the trends regarding different brands, the sentiment, and even which are the topics, analyzing the hashtags that has been increased in this period of time. In this dashboard, the period of time, it's only 1 week, but we can change it with the tool and put a month, 2 months, or whatever we need. Well, this is regarding monitoring, how we translate the information gathered by an analyst and the work he does to send, for instance, a report, a prospective report that can anticipate threats to a client. Here we have, I'm sorry because it's in Spanish, but I will try to explain. This is a case where there was born a new group, an activist group against the energetics. And a client of us asked it, after different alerts, they thought that they need to know who are behind, which is the background, so they may know what can they expect from this threat, from this actor. And then we built a report separated. We had a summary, executive summary, and then we talked about the structure and the organization of the group, what actions did they take, and which is the scope and the impact of these actions. After all, we make an assessment on the risks. So here you can see how they compose, why they composed. They started in Catalonia, but they very fast expanded to other areas in Spain and started to do protests that suppose some risk for our clients. And then we analyze the people that are behind, the local places where they are more active, which accounts are linked to this movement, and talk about the distribution all around the country. And talk about the people that are compounding this group. Which actions did they take? And they are always linked with a source. So anyone who reads the report can see the real information where the source comes from. And put the focus in the last action, because it's interesting for the client to know the moment where they are now. And after all, we make the analysis on the impact and study which impacts they have and the engagement in different social medias. And at the end, we tell which are the risks to our clients in a midterm. Well, I hope that this has been interesting for you, and I am available for any question that you have.
Francisco, sí, muchas gracias por la presentación. No hay dudas, mas creo que ha sido muy interesante, muy interactiva y muy diversificada. Y nosotros tenemos tu email, y los atendís también. Okay,
pues
muchas gracias para ti y para Cipher. Y buen trabajo.
Muchas gracias.
Ok, saludos.
Saludos. Bye, bye.